So what brought me to the faith? So I was growing up in Plymouth, in Stonehouse, on Union Street, and I was just walking into town one day, walking into the city centre, and how I describe it is that I just knew that he existed, basically, and that he was calling me to the priesthood. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know about anything about the church, anything about priesthood, but I did know that priesthood meant dedicating your whole life to God. And from that sort of primordial understanding of the priesthood, it's obviously developed over the years. But the thing that gripped me and continued to grip me during my journey through RCIA, through the process of discernment and learning more and more about the church's teaching and the teachings of Christ, is that I just knew it was true. The faith had been given to me, and I knew that what I was reading, what I was being exposed to, I knew that it was true. And once you know that it is the truth, you can't do anything other than follow what God asks you to do. And so entering the church, becoming a Catholic, being baptized, just became very naturally flowed from that initial experience of God's grace sort of grabbing me out of the street. Seminary has traditionally 4 pillars, and then Pope Francis added a 5th one during his papacy. So being the spiritual formation and intellectual formation, human formation, and pastoral formation. And then Pope Francis added community, which tells me he knows seminary very well, because that's exactly what it's like. The seminary experience is quite, it's obviously very challenging. It's that the whole purpose of it is to form you from where you are into being able to be a priest who is, functional at the very basic level, but also a holy priest who is willing to take the gospel out in season and out of season. So on a very basic level, the human side of the formation, the getting to grips with celibacy, the shaping of your personal relationships in the new context of the pastoral ministry, all of that forms a very solid foundation. And so that's very challenging, because it really goes into the heart of your background, your experiences, and even just your own, humanity. The pastoral sort of side of seminary speaks for itself. You're going out to parishes, you're going out to prisons and hospitals and schools, and being deployed to different parts of the diocese, and different kinds of ministry during your summer breaks and so on. But the community is the thing that sort of lasts with you, because there's nothing quite like gathering 50 blokes in one building from different backgrounds and different ages and just telling them to get on with their life's project, which is their vocation. In terms of lessons learned then from the bishop and Father Keith and all the priests that I've encountered over the years, the main, well, I've learned hundreds of lessons, and some of them I've even written down just to make sure, because there's so much about the ministry that you only begin to unpack later on and after years. I'm sure they'll still be teaching me so much. But one of the universal things that flows from that fraternity that I've mentioned before is a sense of humour. You can't enter seminary without a sense of humour. You can't endure seminary without a sense of humour. You can't enjoy seminary without a sense of humour. And becoming part of the priestly fraternity means that you need to acquire a certain sense of humour, because it can seem very serious, and the ministry that we've been given is very serious. It's the ministry of Christ himself. It's literally the whole work of God in this world today. And that can get a bit full on. So you need to be able to have a sense of humour about the various goings on that happen as part of the ministry. The priesthood isn't so much about what you're doing. It's much more about God is what God is doing to you. Christ is pouring out his priesthood upon you, upon the person being ordained. And what I'm looking forward to most in that context is just living it out faithfully, because that is the vocation that I've received. That's what I've been called to do, and so that's how I will be fulfilled. And so faithfully ministering the gospel, saying Mass most especially, the height of the priestly life, saying Mass, just bringing those things to fruition, all of those graces, all of those good things that God will give me at the ordination itself, bringing those to fruition is the thing I look most forward to, really. Well, there's the sort of celebration of ordination itself. It's very easy to think about the day, but I much more think about the next 60 years afterwards. That's where the difficulty is going to be, and that's where all the good things are going to be. But there's about the day itself. What I focus more on, and what I sort of experience in praying about the day, is more the priests coming from all over the diocese, and people from parishes that I've been to, people I've met, and people I know very well, family members, and it's a whole clashing of worlds for me. But all of those coming to celebrate Christ's priesthood. My first Mass is on the solemnity of Corpus Christi, and I feel that's very fitting, and it's very complementary to the ordination itself, because the Mass and the sacrifice of the Mass is the not just the sum and source of our Christian life, as we all know, but it's also the core and the heart of the priesthood as well. So celebrating that fact, celebrating Christ coming into the world in the Eucharist, the whole Paschal mystery, the whole event and everything in terms of the cross and the resurrection and ascension and all the mysteries of Christ all coming together and being sort of us being welcomed into those through the Eucharist, through the Mass, it makes it very, very sort of very fitting that my first Mass is that, because the focus is totally on Christ. You can't wedge your way in when the whole feast day is about him being made present in bread and wine. So yeah, that's my feelings on that one. So I'm very glad. The only thing that brings you from minding your own business on the street in Union Street, like I was, to the priesthood is closeness to Christ and total focus on him. Because he's the only answer to any of the questions that we have about priesthood and about vocations, crisis, and so on. And so refocusing everything on him can only, it seems to me, be the simple solution.